solutions for more gender equality in the workplace. Amongst others, the CoWomen Changemakers, who are here today with us, and Kirsten Mikkelsen from the University of Flensburg, and many, many more that we will introduce during the day. And we all of you will support you to develop ideas and develop solutions that you are bringing out and work on them. On a personal note, we had some discussions whether gender equality is still the right term, or shouldn't we talk more about gender equity or gender balance? I'm not sure yet, which is partly because I'm not a native English speaker, obviously. If you feel that equality might not be the right term that addresses what we want to achieve today, and you feel more comfortable with using equity, balance, or another term, feel free to do so. Maybe at the end of the day, I also have a solution for myself on how we call the whole event. But for now, it's gender equality in the workplace from our side. But please feel free to use whatever term seems most appropriate to you. Yeah, so I wanted to keep it short because we have some more welcoming notes today. And I will pass over again to Franziska, who is the Wonder Woman behind the whole organization of this event, who made sure that we all have the links, that we have like a great agenda. And she's leading us through the day today. And I'm really, really curious to see the ideas and solutions that are developed by the end of the day. So Franzi, it's yours.
Thank you, Janina. A warm welcome also from my side. It's so beautiful that you are all here. I'm also a researcher, and I have the pleasure to work with Janina on my PhD. I work at Europa University in Flensburg as well, so I'm really on the topic women's entrepreneurship currently, and I would love to introduce you or to welcome you with this beautiful quote from an innovator who innovated and created the Polaroid pictures. And he said, an essential aspect of creativity is not being afraid to fail. So throughout this day today, you might experience new things. You might experience new tools, new groups, new people. It's a total new experience for all of us. And I invite you to say yes and to jump in, to support each other, and to have fun. So this is how the timeline is. Today is only the beginning. Today will guide you through an ideation journey to develop different ideas around this topic and to focus on the challenge you would like to tackle. And then we definitely want to continue that journey with you, and we are here to support you. So all the prizes that you can win are definitely different prizes like coaching and so on to keep you working on the idea. So this is just a brief timeline, but more to that later. And everyone also will get the presentation. And as of now, we're just enjoying the day. So we can move to the next slide, and I'll just briefly explain you how this day gonna look like. For the first hour today until 10, we'll have wonderful speakers here. So I invite you to listen, take notes, and get inspired. And then afterwards, we'll jump into the first ideation session. We'll have a break in between, and then we'll have a second ideation session even before lunch. And during lunch, you have the opportunity to stay in the room. There's an optional talk from the startup consultant, Anna, who will explain you further on how the Freie Universität and other universities and initiatives can support you with your startup. And then in this afternoon, we'll have a third ideation session where you will focus on really clustering your idea and also develop a brief 3-minute presentation, so that at 3, we'll divide you in different groups and you can present your ideas. And then at 4, we're aiming to finish, and we would love to also leave the room open for like half an hour longer for you to network and communicate with each other. So this is the team behind this project, and there are so many more people that also supported us. But I also would like to introduce Marie, who is the head of design. She is doing all the social media, the website with Justus and everything. And Justus is also supporting us in everything. He did the website and also is doing today our tech. So if you have any questions around tech, there's also a Slack channel. So I'll pass over to Sarah and Hannah.
Thank you very much, Franziska. Good morning from our side. Yes, that's a very good idea. So we also have some inspiring voices here put together. I hope you hear me or us well. Otherwise, again, feel free to write in the chat. And then, all right, we get started. Yes, so who are we? You see a picture of us here. Hannah and me, Sarah, we are the co-founders of CoWomen. And with CoWomen, we combine space making for women and changemakers, together with also consulting organizations and companies for change and how to go about change. And our aim really, or our purpose really is to do this because we aim for a more feminist working world. So we come from the very gender diversity perspective. Our role here in the hackathon, however, is we are partners of the Hello Diversity Hackathon. We have taken part also in the conference last year. So we know Janina for a long time, and we're really glad to be here, and also very happy to host this panel today in the Morning Coffee, where Franziska and Janina put together some impressive role models and activists that we can want to hear out now. So the aim of the panel really is to get these different perspectives now in the beginning, to get you some impulses for your ideas in a hackathon, and get you started and get you into the topic of diversity and inclusion in the workplace. Just a few words on the how we will do this. We will address questions to all of the panelists, so you can hear all different opinions and perspectives at first. And then we have also some time planned in the end, at least 15 minutes. We have time until 10 o'clock for you to raise questions. And again, the reminder, Franziska already said it, please feel free to put questions into the Slack channel, ask the speakers, and we will then read them and address them to our panelists.
And before Sarah starts presenting the first person, I also want to say good morning. And so CoWomen we started out, just to add it, as a co-working space for women only. 2.5 years ago, the first one in Germany, and now we are a co-working space for feminists and anybody who wants to change the working world to make it more feminist. So feel free to also stop by and have a chat with us, have a morning coffee with us too.
In Berlin. We're in Berlin. We have
And
two spaces
Heidelberg.
now, and Heidelberg, exactly. But it's great to see also all of you come together. We had Düsseldorf here, Munich already, so it's definitely a across the border group here coming together, which is great. Thank you, Hannah. Okay, without further ado, I would like to present our first speaker today, which is Deborah Choi. You will see all the speakers here on the slide already. Deborah, she is a Business Week 25 under 25 entrepreneur. She's a graduate from University of Chicago, and being a serial entrepreneur, Deborah has previously founded a fashion e-commerce brand, a media company, and an innovation agency for venture-backed startups. Deborah says that we have a lot to do, as Janina said in the beginning as well, and she's involved herself in many ways, one of which is the platform Tech in Color, with the mission of enabling access and visibility for Black, Asian, Indigenous, and minority ethnic female tech founders across Europe. We've taken our liberty to ask our panelists also some maybe more free questions and fun questions. And one of Deborah's D&I fun fact is that if there was a compulsory subject in school on diversity and inclusion, for Deborah, that could be to learn the difference between equity and equality. So again, fits very well to our introduction this morning. Thank you for being here today, Deborah. Then Next up, we have two activists for change. We have Vincent-Immanuel and Martin Speer. Some of you might know them already because Vincent and Martin are catalysts for the German HeForShe campaign, which is organized by UN Women Germany, and they focus on ways and means to engage more men with the quest of gender equality, which is also very important, and we're really happy to have you here. We also ask you some input on fun D&I facts, and Vincent told us that if he could pass a law for more equity in the workplace tomorrow, it could be a mandatory women's quota for company boards, which you all support, or me at least. And then Martin says, for a fun fact, and this will be very interesting, Martin, you seem to be ready for some fights because on the question of who would you like to talk to about D&I, you said Donald Trump. So this is not an easy one. This will be interesting. Maybe we can hear some more about that. And yes, we're also interested in hearing out why you are in this field and what motivates you. Thank you for coming today. And I hand over to Hannah.
Thank you very much. So I'm so proud to present Linda Oldenburg now. She's actually Sarah's and my former colleague in the software, or let's say digital industry. And now again, she joined up with us to make changes for more feminist world and working world. So Linda comes from a corporate world, and she has been a team leader and division manager for a long time. She has always fought for gender equality, gender equity in the workplace, but also joining like any great network we have for women and for female professionals, being, for example, a Panda ambassador, some of you might know Panda, for Hamburg, and being the network manager for Lean in Hamburg as well. Well, she's from Hamburg, by the way. And so when you're around there, get in touch with Linda. And I always say what describes her best to me is she is a phenomenon. So Linda, your D&I fun fact was that you want to talk to Simone de Beauvoir and Margaret Atwood about D&I. So what I actually read about Margaret Atwood, and this is Wikipedia knowledge, that her first novel, The Edible Women, that she said to it, I do not consider it to be feminist, I just consider it to be social realism. And that was actually from 1969. So, and I also read about her that she says that she does not like any kind of labels, especially not the one on feminism. And she says that she always asks first, before she gets into this discussion, like, what does feminism mean to you? And this is like, I can relate to it so much because calling ourselves a feminist in Germany, sometimes like people think of this like a very negative emancipation maybe. So, but I just realized how important it is to actually frame this word of feminism again and to show them what's it about, that it's about creating equity in the world. And that's what we are all going to do today. So thank you so much, Linda, for joining and giving your views from the corporate world and for being a very great female networker. So speaking of questioning norms and limits, I'm very happy to present Violeta. Her aim or purpose is to always help women unfold their full potential, which is, by the way, to me, is one of the most essential tasks of a leader today. So throughout her personal life, with her personal story, she always has questioned norms and limits that were set by society already in her early life, which is why she started to commit to supporting women to unleash and express their authentic power. She's a corporate transformation enabler, and her mission is to create conditions for a new way of work and leadership in organizations. Amazing. So we love to hear from you. And you want to go back in time as your D&I fun fact because you want to talk to the notorious Ruth Bader Ginsburg about diversity and inclusion. Most of you know that RBG was a Supreme Court justice and one of the first female lawyers ever, or well, actually one of the first female law students at Harvard University. And to me, I have to add this because we always have to talk about this, that she is one of the proofs that your career path as a woman, unfortunately, depends very much on the choice of your partner. So thank you, Violeta, for bringing her up, for bringing Ruth Bader Ginsburg as inspiration into this great panel and day that we have today. So that brings us to our last speaker, Kat. So Kat worked in a very number-driven career in consulting before. And by the way, I sometimes ask myself, like, when do we finally get over those number-driven path? And when, let's also smash capitalism at some point, right? So maybe we can work on that some other hackathon. So I am so happy that you are using your expertise now to work in culture change at a German company. You have had the opportunity to work with different people across the globe. So, and your fun fact for diversity inclusion is that you, as a compulsory subject for schools, you would want to have a book club discussing children's books. So this is great inspiration. Thank you. And this is what also the first question is all about. Our inspiration to found CoWomen and to do corporate consulting and female empowerment is the belief that strengthening women will actually create a stronger society and economy. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you, or dear panelists, will say about your inspiration to join us today and in general for your work in this field. So let's start with you, Violeta. What inspired you to speak about gender equality in the workplace?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Hannah, for introducing me. First of all, I would like to say I'm really happy to be here today to see so many great faces and joint forces for this topic. Actually, I have two inspirations in my life I'd like to share with you today. I start with the more recent one, why I commit to gender equality at work in my whole life, pretty much, since I'm working. Together with Kat, who is today also a panel speaker, we led a culture change movement in a big corporation. And we built a network of change enthusiasts, let's say, with people raising their hand. And 90% of those volunteers were women. And I've been working with so many amazing and talented women throughout these years who showed up daring and engaged wholeheartedly to support others in a very collaborative and purpose-driven way. Despite that, we all know that the gender leadership gap is still enormous, and these women should be up there in leading positions. But still, we have systems in place which are biased and through limiting mindsets and especially systemic obstacles hindering women. So additionally to that, throughout my working life, I've also met a lot of women who doubt themselves despite their outstanding performance. When I see all of this in companies, and I really believe that companies also have social responsibility and a moral decision around these issues, I see a lot of a huge, locked potential, which we can't offer to lose. We can't offer to lose these talents and this energy and this vibrancy. So yeah, I became a transformation enabler to help to change the system, which has great power to change systems and structures. And on the other hand, so that everyone has the potential to flourish. Not only women, by the way, also other not privileged groups, I have to say. Also, I've started to create an LGBT network, for example, in our company, which is also important not to forget. And as a coach, I focus on women empowerment because I feel a strong purpose to help women to believe in themselves so that they can get into their authentic strength and not adapt to any, let's say, male dominant world. Yeah, so we need more of this kind of female leadership. So, and this brings me to the next inspiration in my life, which is my mother. Actually, in the 70s, she and my father came from former Yugoslavia to Germany, and then those times a lot of guest workers moved to Germany, literally with empty pockets and not speaking a word of German. Her dream was to enable her children to live a better life. So also to support family and to create better conditions for her family. And she taught me to be a daring, independent thinking woman. That's also, when you think around this, gender norms also in other cultures, I think she did an amazing job in this. So what I want to say with this is look around the role models in your life, like your mothers, your fathers, daughters, grandparents, also pioneers from the past and from the present. And let's be inspired. Let's learn from them. Let's learn from each other to make this change finally happen all together.
Perfect.
All of this inspires me.
Yes. Thank you so much. And I think this inspires all of us. I love your call to look out for role models, and let's create more role models out there. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So now, Vincent, what inspired you to speak about gender equality in the workplace today and always? You made it a mission for your work life and I guess your private life too. So let us know.
Sure. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm super happy to be here. This is a great event. Thank you for organizing this, and thank you for having me be part of it. I actually couldn't have asked for a better, I guess, transition. Violeta just talked about role models and the importance, particularly of her mom, in shaping her or inspiring her. And I would have to do the same. If you ask me what kind of encouraged me to look at gender equality in general, and maybe gender equality in the workplace in specific, I would definitely have to give credit to my parents. My mom is a university professor, and when she became a tenured professor, there was just, I think, 12 or 13% of all tenure professorships in Germany were held by women. And so I noticed quite early on growing up, when she would talk with me and my sister about this, she would give us very specific accounts about what she experienced at university and on her career path to become a tenured professor. And she would tell us about male colleagues who would quite literally tell her that she doesn't belong at university, she should be at home with her kids, and these kind of things. So seeing that, I guess, sensitized me early on to the fact that women often do face stumbling blocks, particularly when they aim for a career in a male-dominated field. But the other inspiration was my father, who supported my mom very much and who also talked with my sister and me about these related subjects. So, for example, he would point out the absurdity of seeing all male panels when we would watch TV talk shows or these kind of things. So what I witnessed very early on is that my parents had a very equal partnership. They would support each other. They're both driven in their respective careers. And so for me, it wasn't really ever a question that men can and should be feminists too. Only later on did I learn that the term feminism might not be as positively connotated as I always thought it was from my family. I thought feminism is a pretty general thing, and that there's a broad understanding that it's important. And I guess that leads me a little bit to my work with HeForShe Germany. I think HeForShe is such a wonderful and important campaign because it does show that the quest for gender equality is a quest that men should be part of and that they can be part of. But what I'm perceiving the big lack to be, and maybe this is my input for the ideation, I guess, or the hackathon today, would be that I think, particularly at companies and big organizations, there is too little room to enable men, maybe amongst themselves, but also men and women, to talk about the subject. I know that a lot of men have a lot of questions about feminism and what it does. They have a lot of prejudice about it. There's a lot of negative perception, let's say women's quota and all sorts of policies that try to, kind of level this uneven playing field that we're dealing with right now in the workplace. But I think we don't have enough places for that to happen. And maybe I was fortunate in that my family provided me with such a place, but a lot of men, there's a lot of open questions and a lot of negative feelings about feminism and a lot of negative thoughts about all the practices or policies that are being tried to put in place to I guess address that. So I would encourage companies to find more ways to enable men also to talk amongst this about this amongst each other, because that almost never happens. And so that's, for example, what Martin, one of the other guys here on the call, and I are doing with HeForShe. We're going to companies, we're talking with all male groups about this, and it's quite interesting what comes out in these groups as soon as the last woman has left the door and the door has left the room and the door is closed. There's a lot of very much open questions to be addressed. I'm just going to leave it at that. But I think we need to openly talk about this. And particularly men, they don't always understand the subject by themselves. They also have to learn from women why this is important. I learned this through my parents, in particular my mom, And I think we need to provide more spaces for other men to have a similar experience.
Thank you very much, Vincent, for those insights. Very, very important. And one thing, we should get you one of those shirts. It says, "It's a feminist world, darling." My husband and my boys are wearing it. So, and I can't help to say that being a mother of 2 feminist boys, and knowing that there are many mothers around, I'm like, hey, no pressure, let's go for it. And again, the choice of partner is very important. And thanks for starting those discussions. I'm such a big fan of it. Thank you.
This is something we can all take into the day. Definitely, we all have individually probably a motivation that also comes very close from our family side. Now let's open up maybe the perspective a little bit and focus on what's happening around us. We are, 22 participants here, 122, I'm sorry, 122 participants here. And also Hannah and I, when we are in the space, we also have male members, for example, then we kind of are in a bubble, I feel like, and it's easy to forget the facts and figures that Janina already mentioned. There's still so much to do about that are not straight. So I would like to ask you, Kat, first. Considering your surrounding, your working world, your experience, what is the biggest challenge that you see that we're facing regarding getting to more gender balance in the workplace at the moment?
Hi, thank you, Sarah. And thank you again for organizing this event. It's fantastic to be able to be part of this. So to answer your question, if you want a one-word answer, it would be mindset, right? Why is that? Well, at least like I feel, mindset is, from my experience, mindset is extremely difficult to change. And I really liked, Vincent, what you were saying, because really it has been created over decades. It starts to what you see at home. Questions like, who has the more important job? Or who is doing the lion's share of household chores and, let's say, childcare. And these are just 2 examples out of many, many, many you would be seeing during your lifetime. And then fast forward and you join the workforce. And guess what? Whom do you see at the top table? So I think the Hello Diversity team, they shared some statistics by Albright Stiftung. And it says that the largest 30 DAX companies have only 13% of boards that is female. So, all of this, what we see, what we experience, it creates your mental world. It creates your reality. And in some cases, even some kind of a belief that you don't question. It's the way it should be. And I believe what is extremely limiting, maybe also in particular in big corporation, is that steering negative emotions is not particularly seen as something great. And you will think twice to address gender diversity or diversity as such in a company, maybe with a culture of harmony, where your next job opportunity really depends on the network that you have. So I would like to give you an example of such a mindset, how it can look like in the real world. Once, now many years ago, I was supporting a management conference, and gender diversity was also discussed, with actually men on the both sides of the arguments, right, to be fair. And the room was full of emotion. You could really feel the tension. And at some point, one senior manager stood up and said, but do you know what? There are not enough female engineers. And some of his peers started to clap. And, back then I was perceiving it, it was not meant in any malicious way. It was a fact. And the guy, the manager, he was right. There were in Germany not enough female engineers. But at that point in time, what I really would have wished for is, instead of focusing on this fact of it is what it is and we can't change it, I would have wished for a discussion such as, how can we get more female engineers? I actually read on the Eurostat that in Europe, there are 6 nations where more than half of all science and engineering students are female. So, maybe it's opening our minds, opening our borders. There is a way. In the long, kind of like a long-term perspective. What we could have been discussing is how to step in our social responsibility and how to support females getting into engineering degrees. Yeah, as I said, back then I was very young and I was very disappointed. But having said that, this was many years ago. And the good news is that times are changing. And although changing mindset is very difficult and can be very slow, I'm very lucky to be working in a company where this is changing fast, where we have half of the board that is female. And I think, well, at least I am excited that the gender diversity is on their top agenda. And yeah, let's see, maybe there are big changes coming our way.
Thank you very much, Kat. I really love that you open up the topic from specific places where we're lacking a balance into it's a mindset issue. That's really important. And I would like to quickly hand over to Linda with the same question. Linda, you have a lot of experience in leadership in different positions, in an SME in Germany, in tech even. So maybe you can also give us your opinion on what do you think are the biggest challenges?
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for having me here. I'm excited, as the others just said. I'm very excited to be here as well. Yeah, I mean, Kat, you mentioned the mindset. I'm saying culture, and those are just two words meaning the same, I guess, because I learned that it all starts with the culture within a company or a business. Because if you have the culture and you have individuals within the company or the business who are happy to support gender balance within their company, they are starting programs, they are starting events, they are starting networks within the company. But if you don't see these kinds of people and this culture within a company or a business, the whole company is lacking the kind of culture which is supporting gender equity, gender balance within it. And I feel there are still lots of businesses, and I hear that a lot from my network from my network talks. I hear there are still lots of companies who are not willing to see the problem. Well, there are so many VCs who are like, or CEOs who are like, we don't have a problem here. We support women if they are competent. But if you see the numbers within the company, they are not doing anything like that. And they are not changing the culture. Janina said it in the beginning, we have been talking a lot about the language, about unconscious bias. We've seen that a lot and we've talked that a lot about, but I see there are still so many companies who are not changing the culture and who are not willing to. And what I'm missing within the discussion is that most of the time we're talking about the DAX companies, but I'm missing that we are talking about small and medium-sized businesses because they are such a big property of our business world in Germany. And I feel that whatever we are talking about, the rules or the regulations are not given for these small and medium-sized businesses. But there are still so many women I'm talking to who need another culture to raise and to actually become leaders and to see more role models within. And that's another thought I want to add to the discussion of the hackathon today. I think it's not the company itself who needs to find a solution by themselves or alone with all these individuals. I'm thinking it is more important to think about the power of the four, as some people say. It's the company or the business on one side. It's the politics on the other side, and we are seeing the discussion on the quota rising up again. It's the society who has to change ideas and to value different kind of living ideas. And we have the men and women. Vincent, you just said it, it's the man too. But it's also the women that we have to support And I think there's lots of things going on, but I feel that the four powers, the four parts have to talk together more and more. It is not the company, it is not just the society, it's not just the politics, it's just not just the females. They all have to talk about the topic together and find general solutions. And I feel we have talked about toolkits a lot, but let's do something. Let's change something. It's time to do so, I feel. And I'm very excited what the hackathon creates, what kind of ideas the hackathon creates in terms of covering that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So it's 2020. This year has been quite a ride. We cannot not comment on it, but we'll leave it to this. We all know that change takes some time. Some say even 6 to 8 years in the field of D&I. And now we talk to SMEs and then they go, well, we don't have the power for that all the time. So today we have an amazing opportunity to brainstorm together, to work on topics and be very free in our minds. And I can't wait to hear what all of you work on together later. Let's see how we can make this happen. So whatever you will work on today, let's meet again in 2030 and 10 years from now. It is 2030 now. Deborah, what is your vision for gender equality in the workplace and how does it look like now in 2030? What should have happened or what has happened?
Great question. Thank you so much, Hannah. And I am also so happy to be part of this discussion and this very proactive approach to addressing, really one of the greatest challenges of our time. So I feel that this is a very special moment today that we are all being a part of. Now, when I think about the passing of time, now that I'm a mother, I tend to think about it in terms of where my daughter will be. So when I think about 2030, I think about having a almost 15-year-old girl. And, when I think about the future today, I really think about the next generation and, what do they need? What are the tools that we're missing, potentially from our own toolkits that they need to rebuild and reimagine a world that does have greater balance, not only across gender, but across all kinds of differences. And I think that, in part that's simply support, being able to listen and hear all the creative ideas coming from the next generation. It's mentorship. It's, also it's being very generous with allowing this next generation to fail many times and to keep going after all. Now, when it comes to specifically gender balance, something that I think about a lot as a founder of a startup, as a person who runs a business and employs a team and has to think about building a work culture. Yeah. I often think about the cultures, work cultures that I was part of before, always in very male-dominated companies where I might be one of the very few women in management or in a manager position. And, I think that there is so much valuable work in dismantling. And what I mean by dismantling is, looking at work cultures that don't serve everyone who works there and rethinking, what are the ways in which we can take apart the elements that are no longer serving the company or no longer serving the culture, and to do this together. I call that dismantling. But I also think that there's so much valuable work in creating new and building new. And I think that with the platforms that I support, such as Tech and Color, what I think about is, how do we get more women to open up businesses, whether that's, an agency or a startup or an SME? How do we encourage and provide the toolkits and the space for women to create because we can and we do, but for many of us, it can be a very hard and long and lonely journey. So I think that when we talk about gender balance and we talk about, the actions we can take, I love to think about, the work of dismantling, the work of fixing what's already there, but also the important work of building anew.
Well, I have goosebumps and I will have to listen to this one again and write all of it down. There was just so much in it. Thank you so much, Deborah. I love it. And that we also come back to culture again and again, and dismantling, creating new. I love it. So Martin, it is 2030 still. What is your vision for gender equality in the workplace? And Deborah, have to add gender balance. Love that you said that. So in favor of calling it like this. But speaking about the gender equality or gender equity in the workplace now, Martin, what should have happened?
Thank you.
What happened in the past 10 years? Sorry.
Yeah, all good. Thank you so much also for having me. So my vision for 2030 is that hopefully then women and men and everybody else, we became better listeners, because I think listening is key in growing personally in moving forward as a society. And actually listening made me or transformed me from being a sexist, basically without knowing it, to become a feminist ally. So I think that is really key and crucial. So 2030, hopefully there are instruments and methods in place that frequently encourage employees, but also employers, to put themselves into the shoes of others, whatever that means, gender-related, when it comes to question of race or diversity backgrounds. So I really hope that companies from all fields understood the importance of it, and that they offer trainings on unconscious bias or gender inequality, structural racism. And maybe also policymakers understood that this is key, and that they also maybe encourage, or it's even mandatory, that such things are offered. I mean, you can't only top-down encourage such change. I think it has to happen bottom-up. So I hope in 2030 there are more apps in place that educate people about gender equality, that connect people to discuss about it, that in a way create also digital spaces to exchange ideas and perspectives, and maybe apps that help us to become better listeners. And my vision for 2030 is that in particular, man understood, and not only intellectually understood, but also emotionally accepted that that diversity and equality in a way is a blessing for all. And to sum it up, I think emotion is key, not only intellectual understanding. Listening is key to create spaces and maybe also apps that encourage us to listen and to understand. And I think then transformation will follow.
Then you have left us here, Martin. Thank you very much. With maybe the biggest challenge is to understand our emotions better and the emotions of our society, within our society, which is going to be very hard. Thank you.
Especially men.
We have a few questions in the Slack chat, and also some comments. So I would like to maybe pick out the questions first, and also ask the speakers to maybe be so kind and also answer to comments in the Slack channel if they want to. So we have two questions to Linda from Diana Luminita, and also from, sorry, I will put two together, from Katja. So first of, Diana is asking you, Linda, what do you really mean by regulations needed in Germany? Is it rather laws, or is it rather about data collection or Germany-wide measures? And in combination with Katja's question, she agrees with you with the power of the 4, but she would add education. So what do you think about that? Maybe you can comment on that, Linda.
Yeah, let me first start with the second question. I absolutely agree with you. I think education, as we see, or as we have seen this year, is definitely the fifth power, because we have seen that education means a lot. Right, we have seen the homeschooling part. We have seen what it means to parents, to families, to have their children in school. That's one of the things. But on the other hand, I mean, Hannah and Sarah, you've asked this question, right, to all the speakers. What kind of what's the word? Which subject would you add to
the school subject?
School,
yeah.
Right? And maybe it's similar to what we have seen with the tech subjects in school, right? Some of you will remember when I was in school, we had the tech subject was like learning to write on computer, to actually know where to switch it on or to switch it off, and like do some of the things I don't remember anymore. But like the computer was something I wasn't really aware of in my personal life. And maybe that is what we need to do, like take smaller steps and integrate it into school and to learn different things. And actually, to talk about these things. We have learned so much from our parents. Yeah, it's either good experiences or bad experiences who make us become who we are in this subject. Maybe let's let the kids talk about what they learn and what they see in their environment, and let's like change the society from the bottom. That's what I want to add about that one. And I don't know if I should open the discussion on the regulation. I was just about to write something about it. I mean, we are talking about the quota again, and I think it's a good discussion. But as I mentioned, it is not only important to implement those for the DAX companies, but to implement it in all other companies as well. I'm working with a company who has 400 employees. Let's have the same regulations for them as well, because that's where like 400 people work, right? And there are so many other companies in Germany who have so many wonderful men and women want to lead or to just fulfill their working dream.
Thank you, Linda. Two remarks. I think we are allowed to have a few more minutes. Otherwise, please, Franziska, cut us off. And we use these minutes, maybe, first of all, to all the speakers, please jump in if you have an idea and an opinion about that. But I can imagine, Kat, maybe you can say a few words also on education, on your perspective on education, because you said the school subject should be a book club for children. Maybe you can say a few words around that to understand why this is so important to you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think there are some fantastic children's books that are already doing all the job we need to be doing. I love, for example, the books by Dr. Zeus. I don't know whether you know him, but I love also, I don't know whether you know the quote. He said, "Why fit in when we were born to stand out?" And, you know, I would love kids to be discussing this quote, to be saying, okay, how was I born? What is important to me? And explain to the others, why is it important to me? And then, you know, at the same time, I would love the kids to listen to the other children in the room or students, you know. I think I could have this discussion with you guys now. You know, I would love to know, for example, Sarah, what is important to you and why? So, you know, small thing. I see it, by the way, more and more. So, for example, my sister, she has 2 kids, and I found it absolutely astonishing when one of the so the girl actually called me and she asked me. So I was discussing with my mom what trust means to me. So what is your opinion? You know, and then I asked her back. So tell me, what is trust to you? And she said, well, I trust that my mommy will collect me from the kindergarten. You know, so these kind of conversation I would love kids to be having from the very, very beginning. And I think they should not stop there. It should be actually going throughout our life. That's what I meant.
I can imagine this would blend in also the kind of education you have at home with family, with friends, and the kind of education you have in school. And maybe also it works the other way around to put old books more into perspective and old stories, because we all know we're still loving these. We have a connection to these old children's books, but their perspective on gender equality is sometimes crazy. So maybe that is also something that could happen in a round or in a space like that. Yeah, thank you for that comment.
Absolutely, absolutely, you're right.
I'm giving the word to the round. Maybe someone wants to add something and stay in the perspective of the future. Maybe one or two more comments, and then we hand back to Franziska. What do you want to give our hackers now into the day?
Yeah, I have maybe it's too big of a question. The one to Deborah, because, and also if we think about the young people now joining us here and working on their brainstorming any idea and maybe founding a business, please do it. Be brave, be bold. And Deborah, one topic that's always coming up for us, because we think that startups have on a very special mission, not only to create innovative products, but the culture of the future. So they have a responsibility, and sometimes I'm like, why aren't you aware of it? Or they are waiting for the perfect time to make it happen, to put some diversity measures in place or inclusion measures. And you said you start from the very beginning doing it, and this is also to us like the right thing. You have to put it into your DNA. So what can you give as advice to startups, how to do it, or what's like the best tip you have for them maybe?
Great question. And I have to start by saying I'm absolutely sure that I am totally not doing it right, but I'm trying. Yeah, so, I think that, one of my fun facts or fun quotes at the beginning was about learning the difference between equality and equity. And, I tried to find a way to really narrow in on that difference. And I think that really the difference is that when we talk about equity, what we're talking about is that we are not ignoring differences. We're not ignoring that people have different needs in the workplace. And I think that, when we can imagine as an entrepreneur or as someone working at a company, how to make the gender balanced, I think it starts with saying, what are the needs of everyone who's here? And how can we then kind of bring these needs into our working culture? And, I think that a challenge with this, and I think this might be something that could be quite interesting for the hackathon, is that for many of us, it's hard to articulate what our needs are in the first place, right? Sometimes we have a sense of them, but it can be difficult to put those senses together. I think that conditioning-wise, for men and women, it can be quite challenging to articulate that for ourselves in just the way that many of us have grown up, let alone sharing that with others, and let alone sharing that in a workplace. And I think that as an entrepreneur, or even as a colleague or an employee, and I've had the privilege of being both, right? I think that it comes down to, how can we help people to articulate and broadcast their needs in a way that can then be received and acted upon. And, I don't have all the answers, and I'm still working on it myself, but I do try to at least hold that space and open that space with my colleagues to say, in our check-ins, how are you doing? What do you need? And I think that that's just a small step in that direction. But I do think with the power of technology, there could be amazing ways to surface needs that are in all of us.
Thank you very, very much to all of the speakers for your contributions, for your insights, your opinions. There is an engagement going on in Slack right now and in the chat. And yes, maybe feel encouraged to engage into that also, and answer some more questions. Also, in the end, now the question of intersectionality has been raised, so this is a big one. Maybe we can write and answer this in the Slack channel and hand it back to Franziska. Hannah, do you want to add something?
No, thank you very much. So much inspiration. Can't wait to see you all at 3 again and to hear what you're working on, and let's change this world.
Hands on.
Thank you all so much. This was amazing.